So here we are, ready to start Westphalia. I've actually begun the game with the initiative phase, randomizing these. Nobody's cut any deals, nobody's thought about them yet. It's kind of hard to make decisions right away in terms of cutting deals. Obviously, you can do it even before you finish the setup. In terms of, well, before Austria draws their card, which we've already seen. And I've put the rest of the cards over here so that, because I have very limited table space and I want my tea here. I don't know why, if I'm going to be talking, I can't really drink tea, but I expect I'll be stopping a fair amount. So, what are we doing? Well, we're doing that initial diplomacy phase. Beyond the initiative, it comes to arrears. Let's take a look at the arrears card and see if anything just immediately jumps to mind. I didn't do this the first time I played, but Dutch Republic's at 2. That means we could get rid of one of these prestiges if the offer's good enough. The Spaniards are at 6, which is midway. We would like to go either way. We could get rid of one, or we could gain one. I don't know how many people can give away prestige, but maybe if we can get rid of some debt, that would be worthwhile. Seriously, no one else has prestige? The Swedes have prestige. I did not give that to them. They also have 2. Again, that's a flexible amount. Now, in order to make my decisions here, well, this 2 could go to 3. Prestige is worth a lot, especially this early in the game. So, 3, 6. Spain is probably going to make their 8, but the quicker they make it, the better off they are. Yeah. How do you make your decisions here? Well, I also have room for some new debt, but I'm going to get at least a couple, 2 or 3, no matter what happens. So, and I'm at 20. If I get rid of one, that drops me down to where it actually gets rid of 2. All very interesting. So, where I was playing before, I just kind of ignored this and said, hey, let's play through the first diplomacy phase without thinking too much. But I want to make some offers. What I'm going to do for my offering is similar to what I do when I play Civilization. I see 3 people who have kind of interesting options available, so I'm going to roll for one of them, either the Dutch, Spain, or the Swedes. No one else has a prestige, and they can't really play in this realm as easily. Okay, so the Swedes have the first thought here, so let's look at them. They have 10 and 2. Gaining one isn't going to really help us. Losing one might, if we could get rid of some. Is there anyone we particularly want to work with? We could use more troops, but we are going to get 2 more. That'll put us to max, so that's not a big deal. I think Sweden will pass. I don't see playing with them too much on this. The biggie is Spain. I think Spain has the most interest in trying to do something right away with this. So let's just go to them. What do they want to do? Well, we have a big army. We have 8 units. We're going to be gaining 2 more units. I thought I had this set so it wasn't wobbling. We're going to be gaining 2 more units, so we're not really interested in that. But we would be interested in either giving a prestige away to get rid of some debt, or gaining a prestige, possibly gaining some debt. What do we got here? Well, we have 20 debt, or 20 debt and 7 prestige. And like I said, if we get rid of our prestige, that doesn't really hurt us in terms of column right now. And if we can get some debt down, we actually get rid of an extra debt. So let's look to people who might be interested. Just about anybody wants that prestige. Is there anybody who it's not going to hurt for the debt? Bavaria, the Dutch, and the Austrians could take on debt. You know, the Austrians look at their card. Our debt threshold is not very good. Granted, you know, there's a lot of things that are going to reduce it at the end of the game. But we're a little less interested. We're in a fairly strong position in the Netherlands. Are the Dutch willing to give us peace? Because there's not really anything we can gain off the Dutch. So that's what we're kind of looking at. Hey, what if we give you a prestige, say 2 debt, and we sign the peace? That doesn't sound unfair, but and the Dutch are willing to do that. So that's what we're going to do, and I just have to handle the mechanics of it. It wasn't too hard. Now, obviously, the Dutch, there are some reasons for the Dutch to kind of maybe want to beat up on the Spanish, but I don't really see it. It's almost obvious to me that these two wanted to make peace, and this trade seems to work wonders that way across the board. It's really good for Spain, but we did give away a prestige, which is a valuable thing. I don't know if the 2 debt was worth it, and that exchange was fairly easy. Let's say we leave everybody else alone. So now we just do the mechanical aspect of looking at the arrears. So the Dutch have 10 debt and 3 prestige. They gain 2 more debt. So they have gained 4 debt in exchange for that 1 prestige. But if they hadn't had that prestige, they would have gained 3 debt. So it's not as bad as it looks, and they've got this permanent gain here. One of the things they're hurt by is they no longer have their army, which takes away one of their opportunities to maybe gain prestige, right? But I found that they really don't like having to fight. This puts France in a trickier position. France is probably grumping about it. They could have made some kind of counteroffer, but what could they really give? Over to the Spaniards. I have 5 prestige, which is as good as I was at, with only 18 debt. That means I gain 2 debt. And we go up to a 10. And we're back up there. The French, no prestige with 10 debt. That gives them 3 more debt. And they're a little unhappy with what just happened. The Bavarians also gain 3 debt. This is just the Austrians. Oh, they would have liked to have gotten rid of 1. They're going to gain 4 debt. Not good. And then the Swedes, 10 at 2, gains them 2. Now you can see this accumulation of debt throughout the game increases the debt cost that you take each time. That puts us to recruitment. This is just mechanical. So for example, we get 2 more pieces. Now one rule, I didn't go over all of the rules in the game, in part because I didn't have the rule book open because the table's so small. But if there's less than 17 of these, which is the amount that's generated each turn, no additional ones, nobody gets any additional. So everybody's kind of, the people who generate a lot of units kind of have a desire to cause battles to happen. And then likewise here, 2 more for the Spaniards, and I'll do the rest of these off of it. So the Dutch are in a position where if I put all 6 of my units in here, I'm basically guaranteed to get 2 commerce cards. That seems worthwhile. So we'll do that. And get this out of the way. We're not going to need it for a little bit. Roll for Italy. Okay. So we roll 2 dice. And deals could be being made already. But there's not much to go. There's doubles. We re-roll. Okay, so it's 3. Spain has to spend first. They're going to get rid of units, and France is going to do the same. Although for France, units are a little bit more valuable at this point, but honestly, the idea of taking on debt for more units is very painful, especially at a 1-for-1 trade. Roll for gold. Spain doesn't have to roll for gold. We gain a prestige because we're at peace now and for the rest of the game. Still nothing I have to do yet. Nobody's in really an exciting position, but now we're in a place where things get interesting. We will be getting less than or equal to ships, and we're at peace with Spain, so we get 2 of these commerce cards. Now, what's interesting here, let me move the deck here, because there's a Portuguese card, which is just basically a you got screwed, you didn't get anything with that card. But what's interesting here is there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 diplomacy phases. Every single one of them, I'm going to be able to get 2 cards. The last time I played, I only got 1 card per for most of the game, at best. And I felt like I didn't have enough, but this time I feel like I'm going to generate too many. First one's a 4. Now this does me no good unless I get it in someone's hand. Second one's a 3. Now things are interesting. Now there's something out there that's changed. Somebody's gotten something of value. Now there's also troops, but we go to the unrest phase. Because again, unless there's some deal, that involves, without the unrest phase happening, I don't know what's going to happen. So maybe I want to wait until that happens to try to leverage a better trade. Also, what happens is half my ships go away. That's going to be a constant burden on the Dutch. And they actually have another problem. They've got 4 units and no army to put them in. So they've got extra units to give away. That's kind of a problem. I was there because I had to look up in the rules. There's some places where these rules are a little ambiguous, and maybe there's questions online or whatever. The Dutch do not have an army on the map. That's because of the peace. Cessation of hostilities. When hostilities cease, remove the Dutch army from the map. What's not clear is whether, in the final step, the armies, whether they can be assigned to that army, whether the Dutch can keep up to 8 units there. I'm going to look that up because that's actually a key factor. If they're not allowed to, then I have to dispose of these. I don't have to deal with these. I can collect these up, and use them at will within the trading mechanism. But I do have to figure out what to do with my units if my armies don't retain. If they do retain, hey, I've got enough for next turn's shipping, right? But I don't have the capacity to put them in here except in recruitment. And if I do not have an army to hold them in, there's an issue. What's not clear is whether off the map means that that army is actually gone, or is it notionally still there and I can hold my units in it? One would think I could hold my units in it, because if not, that means I can't have troops at the end when I go into the resolved debt either. All I can have is ships in the Dutch shipping box. I was unable to find any clarification on this, but I could have easily seen that it went, that way. But here's the thing. The rules just say the army is removed from the map. Not from the game, not that it can have no units, nothing along that line. So I'm going to take the minimal interpretation of that rule, which is the army still sort of exists vaguely. There are some issues with this, which is that Spain almost certainly wants peace. The Dutch, they are indeed paying certain things for this peace. However, those are pretty minor. It's the ability to intervene militarily and gain claims that way. They can still get claims, by the way. They can have them traded to them. And no one can take that from them because no one's at war with them anymore, which is kind of interesting. It puts France in a really crappy position. It's very helpful to Spain. How big a deal is that? Well, the biggest problem would be can everyone win the game if this happens? Now, someone posited a strategy, which is the Dutch agree to this peace right away and then start operating in favor of Austria, Bavaria, France to ensure a four-person win. Again, what victory means in this game and what it means to whom, it all becomes this sort of weird, philosophical question about what the game represents and everything. So to some extent, I think you have to take the situation into effect. A powerful, victorious Spain here is less pleasing to the Dutch than most of the other end conditions that could happen. So, to some extent, I don't think you can just say, oh, look, we all won, and it's just a win-loss binary thing. But on the other hand, the fact that certain powers have to have other powers win in order to win, again, that kind of colors what the victories mean. So, I would not see this game as a purely competitive exercise. For example, you can look at diplomacy and say, well, it's very, very clear-cut, and, the victory conditions are just there, and there's not much you can do to ooze around them. This one I feel is designed in a different sort of flavor. One that's very appealing to me, and I liked it with this shoot from the hip way that I like to play. I don't think that if you really start calculating out, can I assure victory this way? Well then, could I have possibly gotten a victory that I should be prouder of? Like maybe the Dutch win and no one else does. Is that better? I don't know. But if the Dutch are actively operating in favor of decreasing tolerance, for example, wow. You can say they're not winning by as much. They're taking sort of a cheaper line to victory than you'd want. Anyway, we're at the Unrest phase. Now, the first time I played, I looked at this and said, I should draw a card. That would be interesting. At this point, here's the problem. France and Sweden each have to pay a PIP. Then they have to take on debt, and that's early debt. So taking the card at this point in the game, I actually think is a bad idea. I think if you're going to withhold taking cards, withhold them early. So they're both going to pass, or they're going to agree not to play that. And we're going to be going into the final step. But the biggie here is it's time to finish up the negotiations. So one of the things that's very obvious at this point is that our army units are something that's available to play with. So looking at my different powers, Sweden's got its full 8-point army capability. It probably more or less wants that. I mean, sure, it'll trade them away if it's a great deal, but who's going to give it that kind of great deal unless there's so much risk to Sweden in terms of like, I'm shifting all my armies over to the Catholic powers and then they'll just romp all over me. We don't want to do that. Although you can kind of play that because France then has to support you, like to gain something you really want in exchange. I don't want to go in that direction though, trying to hold the hammer over somebody's head. Austria only has 6 armies, but Bavaria has an extra army or an extra unit. France has 11, but 2 places to put them, so that's not so good. The Spanish have 7. We would like to win the Netherlands war, and that's going to be a tough fight without the Dutch supporting us. The Dutch have 4 units, 3 of which they will be able to use next turn in there, but they only actually need 2 because they have additional. So they have a couple extra units they could easily trade away, and they could trade all 4 if need be. So, what kind of deals can we get? Good question. Let's see. The easiest calls that the Dutch have is they could say, hey, look, I have a pretty, and this is the heart of the strategy I was talking about, I have a pretty good chance of stopping France from winning. Again, I feel like that's kind of a cheap way to try to enter the victory. It does bother me. And I saw this effectively happen last time when I played, was the Dutch were like, mine kind of aligned more with the Catholic powers, and I can probably prevent the French from winning by various means. But yeah, like I could take Dutch areas and prevent the French from, well, no, they can move through and keep fighting the Spaniards. So that's not really a safety. I don't know what I'm thinking exactly. But the point is, if I throw my support in with the other side, I'm doing something a little different. So I would rather not aim in that direction. What I was thinking was, hey, I can trade my commerce away. If I'm going to trade things away, though, I want debt. I want to get rid of debt, actually. That's the whole point. Now, me trading commerce cards away is good for both players, but I want something out of it. And there's nothing that I actually want on the board except maybe tolerance points. Well, Austria does not particularly want to give tolerance points away. They've got an authoritarian of 6. I've got 3 of it built up here. I probably have to give liberties away for Spain, who has to have liberties greater than tolerance to win. And for Bavaria, and Austria needs Bavaria to win. So that's one problem. And I'm having a hard time finding anyone that the Dutch really want to deal with, except maybe the Catholic powers. And even there, nobody really wants to take on Dutch debt. That doesn't look appealing to anyone for something that's evenly matched if I give out these 2 cards. Those cards don't help you immediately. They don't help you to the end of the game. So nobody's that desperate for them. Somebody might take one cheaply. And also, if I hand them to other players, those players can trade them. And that is dangerous because they can set it up so that one player is holding all the commerce cards and make it so the Dutch can't win. That's the real problem there. I want to make sure, although I can't, but I don't want to dick people over, because then they're more likely to try to dick me over, although they may have that capability, period, the end, in terms of dealing with the Dutch. So what do we have kicking around? Well, we have a Bavarian army unit, which they would gladly, they will agree to give that to Austria in exchange for a liberty. The 2 can agree to that. Now I have the only other loose army is over here, the Dutch Republic. Well, the Austrians are going to just give that army to the Spaniards, that unit. Good idea? Well, Spain has to win, and we're worried that the French will put all their armies up in Flanders. So we want to match them and try to keep that steady. That puts us now to the Dutch have a couple extra units that they could throw somewhere. They have their trading capability, but I don't feel like there's any deal that's really being opened up. What about the initiative track? Is that open to anything interesting? So the Dutch go very late in the initiative track. That could be of value to someone. For example, to Spain, who goes very early. Or to Austria. Well, Austria's cut their troops down, but they would like to go late. So I'm going to seek out both Spain and Austria, the fucking Catholic powers, and see if either one of them is willing to give me a debt for a commerce card, or to take a debt for a commerce card. Now, it is of some importance to look at the debt thresholds, because Spain, for example, is sitting at the 20 threshold, which means they're already at their limit. Austria is at 15. They would be taking some pain. So let's see if Spain will do it. Spain agrees. I am going to offer this card, a 3-point trade card. God, I gotta fix this. Give the Spaniards a debt and swap places with them. Not giving them an army. They don't need it. Okay. Austria would like an army. However, they don't really want to take on the debt, so they're going to hold off on that. So I think we're done with the trading. At this point, everybody's militaries are safe size, but France has to think. France is going to move 2, 4, 6, 8 military units into here. So they're tied with Spain so that they don't fall behind. And that leaves them with a weak army sitting in the Holy Roman Empire. That could be a problem. But they're safe here. But they could lose these. And that's where the risk is. And that sends us to the military phase, which we'll be back for in a little bit. Let's just jump in. All right, first thing, the Dutch have no military, no army. They can't play. The Austrians. The Austrians' army is quite small. We could go challenge the Swedes. That's not going to help us. We could go challenge France. The Swedes could help the French. That's dangerous. So I am going to pass in terms of military. Puts it on the Bavarians. The Bavarians have a fair-sized army. We cannot just grab random Holy Roman Empire stuff. We have to let a Protestant power take things. That's no good. However, we want to gain some territory. Now, one of our problems is we don't have a lot of control markers. That's an issue. But we're going to go to Alsace. The French certainly are not going to intervene. We're going to convert Alsace. What about the Swedes? Well, the Swedes don't want to face the big Bavarian army. They've got things they can do on their own. So there we go. We just took that, and we lose a cube. Are we willing to go into Comte? Well, that's kind of interesting, because the Swedes actually are too far away to intervene. They don't have any controlled territory that they can travel through. Interesting. So all of this territory is considered Austrian controlled, as long as there's no claims in it. And they have the right as Holy Roman Emperor to travel through things, and they can also travel through the Bavarian stuff, which means Sweden can't intervene in the Bavarians. So the Bavarians are going to move again, and they're going to do it again. And they take Comte as well. Now, the Austrians could have done this, and perhaps should have. Nobody stopped the Bavarians, so they will march back to the Upper Palatinate, just giving themselves some space. The Austrians are kind of feeling foolish for not doing anything. The French. This French army, if it does anything, it can be intercepted by either Austria or the Bavarians. That's not good. However, this French army is capable of doing stuff. Now, do I want to do things to the Spanish? Well, here's a danger. I move here and do this. I'm kind of forced to intercept here if the Spanish go here, and they move after me. So I am going to pass entirely. You can see the armies phase doesn't have much happen. Okay, that puts it on the Spanish. Spanish can't do anything about the Dutch. This is home territory, can't go here. And the Dutch are not in the war. My only option is to attack the French. Remember, there's a disadvantage to attacking. And I'm not Protestant, so I don't get any special edges for a fight. So again, I think I too will pass. And that puts me to the Swedes. Well, the Swedes have a maximal army right now. So we want to do things. What things do we want to do? We could try to come closer to the Bavarians, but the Bavarians collect troops faster than us. That doesn't seem terribly valuable to me. So I'm going to move to Brandenburg, where I am fairly strong right now. And I'm going to spend a cube to put this. Now, either Austria or Bavaria could attack me by interception, but they only have 6 armies, I have 7. Attacking is generally at a disadvantage. So my second move, I'll go here into Brunswick, and I will do the same thing. I could now go to Pomerania, and because Brandenburg and Mecklenburg, there's no way that anyone could intercept me there. The problem is, my army's getting smaller. I want to make sure to maximize it. So I'll stop there. And that pushes us to the next diplomacy phase. And as you see, really fast game, to tell you the truth. The hard part is the diplomacy part. I could see that taking actually longer in an opposed game because so many people are weighing so many different options in terms of what they're being bribed with, etc. We haven't seen a whole lot happen. Notably, the Bavarians haven't gained any territories that are Protestant, so they're not converting anything. No battles have happened. You know, it's a peace game, not a war game. When I was playing this without videoing, I ran through it pretty quickly, but now having to video it, it's just a burden. Obviously I enjoy videoing. I wouldn't do it otherwise. But so anyway, I did the initiative, got the randomized initial start. There's no real reason to cut deals just on the initiative. But at this point, the arrears phase, this is sort of one point where there's a good reason for deals to be cut. Another one comes, well, conceivably in here, the golden trade. There might be a possibility that something happens there. But then the next big one is at the unrest stage, where you might be able to make some kind of deal involving France or Sweden, cutting a deal there. Otherwise, it kind of happens at the end. So let's take a look at our arrears situations and see if there are any things that we want to do. Now, I'm going to take this offline. I'll probably be rolling some dice and making a couple of decisions that way, or maybe not. But I'll try to describe things as they happen. Looking at things broadly, the Dutch have 3 prestige. They don't want to drop down if they can help it. Yes, they could make up for that conceivably if they got rid of a point of debt, but they would have to get something pretty nice for that to happen. The Spaniards, they have 6 prestige points. They're going to be getting 1 each turn, which is pretty nice because they made their peace. They love that. They're at 21, which means unless they're getting rid of a couple of debt, it's almost certainly not worth it. And the prestige is probably worth more. So they would want something more than just, hey, I'll give you a 2 or 3 debt and a prestige. Sweden over here is actually the only person in a really, really interesting position. They're sitting at 2 prestige, which means they could conceivably get rid of 1, or if they could gain 1, either one would be great. And they have 12 debt, which is at a kind of neat place. But I just am not seeing any deal that they terribly want to make. One thing they might, you know, hey, give me that. You know, that might be of interest to them. But I'm just not seeing it, so I don't think that anybody's going to be making any deals at this point. So now we go to the mechanistic step of the recruitment, where we just gather up based on the points given for each thing. And because that's got a lot of fishing in here, I'll do that off camera as well. And the Dutch are going to drop 3 more ships in to ensure that they get what they get, and now they have 3 in backup. They'll be getting 2 more, so they could actually trade a couple away and be in good shape. This is all dependent on that idea that if this army is not on the board, it can still collect up units in it for whatever value that is. There are a lot of units on the board. Austria has room for 1 extra. Sweden's full up. Bavaria's got a couple extra. France likes to eat armies. France has an extra 1 though, actually. Spain has a couple extra. And of course, the Dutch are like, heh, well, give me units. You know, I'll trade you something for units. But first we have the Spain-France. Again, a mechanical action, but with armies being cheap, we're almost sure that they're going to go away, so each side loses 2 armies. Crap. Sure not to lose pieces, because countermix is determinant in this. Roll for gold for Spain. Well, we gain a prestige. Got to keep an eye on things. If all the prestige goes away, I won't be getting that free one each turn that I'm counting on. Interesting. Dutch trade, it's going to be equal to, less than or equal to ships. I'm at peace with Spain, so I will get 2 cards. And this is kind of tricky. They have to be done in order, because if you draw the Portuguese card, you're just screwed. Well, you're screwed for that card, and then you reshuffle, which is why it has to be done in order. These guys are shuffled, so, you know, shuffling them more doesn't do anything. And now we're down to the unrest phase, and I need to think to do this. They have an interesting deal they want to propose. They want to give Württemberg to the Bavarians in exchange for a unit and swapping order. Swapping order is important. Austria will get to go last with the big army. Bavaria has a big army, gets to go last. That's kind of cool. But by giving them Württemberg, the Bavarians will be going early. They'll Catholicize it. We might be willing to Catholicize more than one area. That reduces the tolerance. That's good for both Austria and Bavaria. Bavaria probably wants more than that. However, this is a pretty cheap deal that they might be willing to take anyway. So let's see if they're going to push for more. Basically, you know, I'm not saying they wouldn't push for more if I don't roll a yes, but if they do push for more, odds they push for more. If they do push for more, it means they're getting better traction, and then I make another check. They're not going to push for more. I think they're just going to go ahead with it. So they will grant Württemberg, we'll give them Württemberg, and we swap initiative. And the more might have been a liberty, for example. We give the Austrians a military. So that's one deal going on. This isn't necessarily what we're really looking at. But I made that deal while I was trying to figure out, hey, France and Sweden, are they going to do something? You know, it seems like a good idea, but they're not maxed out on troops. Spain's got a big army up there. Austria and Bavaria have big armies. Odd they're going to draw a card. Because, you know, we're actually moving through. Yes, there's 2 more diplomacy phase. Make it a 1, they'll draw a card. Because I don't think they really want to do it yet. They choose not to. Well, if they're not going to do unrest, we go to the final stage. And I've got more thinking to do. because, you know, Austria has to make sure, hey, is Spain doing okay? They look pretty good. Bavaria looks okay. They could use some help, but I don't know what to do for them. But the Dutch have some shipping capacity. They probably want to get into people's hands. I forgot to do the arrears, actually. Let me just calculate it out, because I talked about it and then I forgot to do it. We've got the corrected debt in play, just, you know, if you are really following along and you want to halt things. But now we jump back to here, just because I forgot that. And I don't think anybody really had a deal that involved debt at that point, since I only looked at Spain and Austria. But now we have some interesting things because of the commerce, because of other factors. One interesting trade come up. Everyone... Basically, the Dutch are managing the dealing right now, because they've got this handful of yum. And they were trying to convince Sweden, hey, I'll give you a 4-point card if you take 2 of my debt. Well, that nets the Swedes out ahead. It could end up screwing the Dutch over. Overall, the Dutch are definitely getting a good deal with that. And nobody's really willing to do it because of the current prestige debt combinations, like 15 debt. Well, I don't want to take more, you know, not unless I'm getting something like a prestige or something for it, or something good. But what I saw was France, who's at 17 debt, can go up to that 19. And they can give a territory over to the Dutch. That actually doesn't hurt them. Giving territory to the Dutch still keeps them in the equal balance with the Spaniards. It doesn't do them any real harm. In fact, it's the taxation where that happens, so yeah, it does not do them any harm whatsoever, as far as I can see. And they don't really care about any of this, and they want to help the Dutch. That territory does help the Dutch. That sounds like just a win-win to give the Dutch territories. However, that 3 for 2 is not the best deal in the world. I would like to sweeten it. I'm willing to go with the 3 for 2, but on a 1, I put enough pressure that the Dutch are going to give me the 4 for 2. I do not, so we're going to exchange this 3-point trade card here, which again might not work out all that well for the French, and 2 debt to make up for it. Now this is just good for the Dutch, but helping the Dutch helps France too. And we give them the Brabant. And we're still allowed to stay here because they're my ally. Alright, I don't know if there's anything else going on yet, because people aren't as pressured yet, right? That's one of the problems. I think I found another deal. Now I suspect that I want to make a little bit of thought there, but I don't think we have it. The Bavarians lose one of their trading pips, essentially, one of these units. The French have to decide where their armies are going to go. They would really like... See, they've got a mixture here, because this token is worth something to them at the end of the game, but they really don't particularly care one way or another whether or not Württemberg becomes Catholic. That doesn't really hurt them, so maybe they're not that concerned with it. I think we'll keep our troops stationed as we have them there. We can shift them around as we like, and I think everybody's set to go into the military stage. I had some thought about, hey, you know, the Bavarians could swap with the Spaniards and still go very late in the turn, because it doesn't really hurt Spain, because Spain goes after the French no matter what. But I don't see anybody who's really interested in moving the initiative enough to pay anything for it. That one unit was not worth much. So, what about the Austrians? What are they going to do? Well, they have a whole army. Troops are kind of maximal right now. There's not a lot I can take. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to start taking part of Brandenburg. And Sweden's got to make the decision. Do we want to fight? We do not. Bang, gone. Okay. Do the Austrians want to keep going? Anywhere they go, they could get themselves in trouble. There's an advantage to defending, though. And there's Bavarian troops. Whoops. Bavarian troops to take. Well, that doesn't go away yet. So I'm going to try again. Now here the Swedes are like, wow, you know, if I get hosed, the Bavarians will come up and just screw me over. If I don't get hosed, though, I'm losing territories, and that could be ugly. I can regain those territories fairly easily, but I could also defend it, and this is where things are hard. So the Austrians would be defending at 14. The Swedes would be attacking at 8 plus a pair of dice. I probably win, but there's a 1 in 6 chance I just lose. I let the Austrians take Brandenburg from me, which is not good. I think the Austrians... crap. I just fucked up. The Austrians do not go first. I have trouble discerning that blue. Let's go back here. Put these back. Okay. But you can see going early isn't necessarily bad. You might be able to get advantages by going early in the turn that might not be available going late. Anyway, let's rewind back to the French. Jeez, what are the French going to do? Again, there are lots of troops on the board. We'll march into Spain. We are going to take one of Hainaut. There's a problem with taking Hainaut, which is that Brabant could get lost to us if we're not careful, but let's hold on. The Spanish are not going to intervene in this. Again, for similar reasons, you don't want to give up the odds if you can help it. The French are going to push their luck, and they're going to try again. And now, the Spanish will let them. Yay! For similar reasons as I was talking with the Swedes. I think the French have a lot of armies. The French have succeeded twice. They're going to continue their movement by going back to Brabant. And now they're going to start moving this army. For this army, what do they want to do? They want to move into Alsace. Now I only have 7 armies. The Bavarians have 8. The Bavarians could attack by intercepting. I don't have any prestige. That's one of the factors. If you have prestige, you can lose prestige. So I am going to intercept. The French are not going to withdraw. So the French have a defense of 14. The Bavarians have an attack of 8. And let us see. 8 and 6 is 14. Both sides lose 1. And I believe the victory goes to the defender, but I'm not positive. Let me recheck that. So the army has to withdraw. A prestige is gained by the French, and they're able to take this. Now, I don't know if they have to pay, so hold on while I check that roll as well. It's hard to remember all the little bits about the military. There's not much there, but man, so little military actually happens, and it is, you know, these things happen every turn, and they're fairly simple. The military, we didn't see a battle earlier, so I'm refreshing on the rules as I play, even though I played not long ago. From what I can tell, that actually doesn't even happen. Under interception, there is nothing. It's when you intend to replace a non-acting player's claim in the area. A hostile non-acting player in that theater may intercept, blah, 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 blah. Nothing in this is to be replaced. See, this is what's weird. When the player intercepts, they move it into after resolving the battle and he retreats. The acting army's turn ends. Now, I hope I'm not going to mess anything up here. Under the battle rules, if there's a retreat, the attacker is able to replace a claim as if they won a battle. As if they won a battle. That seems to indicate, count all. I'm not seeing that there. The player who loses returns a prestige. The other side gains a prestige. Tolerance increases. The loser has to retreat. I am not finding this. So here, what they say is before resolving, the defender has the option to refuse, then the defender moves away, no battle is resolved. But it does end the acting player's turn, and if the acting player was the attacker, they were not, they were the defender, they're able to replace a claim as if they had won a battle. That seems to imply that there's the capability to replace one, but I see nothing in the rules that says you can. And that feels like a typo to me. There may be someplace else where it says that. If they choose not to intercept, the acting army gets to do it. They cannot replace a claim. God damn it. My feeling is that the way the rules are written, the intention is that the French can make this replacement, and I'm assuming at a cost. And that's what I'm going to play it as. But I'm not seeing those words in the rules. All I'm seeing is this statement here, as if they won a battle. Well, why is that a deal? Well, somewhere under battle, that rule should be there, and I am not seeing it. That's what I'm going to play it as, but I cannot find it anywhere that I'm looking. And somewhere under the battle rules, there should be, if you win the battle, you can make that replacement. It's implied that it's there, but I'm not, again, seeing it. And it's important is if you're campaigning, you're attacking the other player. If the acting army wins the battle and there is at least one claim belonging to one of the enemy armies, they may replace one with their own, discarding one of their units accordingly. That's campaigning. That's when you march in. So if the French had marched in to the Austrian Bavarian army and hit it, they would have the option to replace one. But being intercepted, they don't seem to. But it says they may attempt to replace. It's a little weird. I'm going to say that the intention of the rules is that the French are able to replace this. We're not sure that that's what's meant, but it is my best interpretation of what I can see. And I'm not saying for sure that there is no rule for it. I just can't see it anywhere I'd expect it. And that's what I would see. This was intercepted, so it is stopped. And this has already taken its turn. So we've done our French. And now we go to the Bavarians. Well, the Bavarians only have 7 armies now, or 7 units in their army. But the French are weaker. Do we want to swing back and attack again? It's an interesting question. First things first, we Catholicize Württemberg, and we reduce the tolerance rating. Makes Austria happy as well. We get lots of armies. We don't have any prestige. The French do. The Swedes do as well. We could march up and do something to Sweden. And we might get away with that. I think that is our better option. So we're going to march up to Brandenburg. Now, the French do not want to intercept us. Our army's weaker. Like before, the Swedes are going to let the Bavarians upgrade once. But the second time, I think we're coming in. It's just getting, we're getting too hurt by this. Of course, then the Austrians are available to schwack into us. Good God. We will let the Bavarians take a second one. And now that is going to be Catholicized next turn if we're not careful. However, and that hurts tolerance, which hurts us. The Bavarians could keep going. They only have 5 armies now, though. And wherever they go, they'd be hitting something bigger, except if they hit the French. Of course, they don't want to attack the French, so we'll stop there. That's our Bavarians. Okay. Now we go to the Swedes. The Swedes are in kind of a troubled situation. We have a full-size army. We could have attacked the Bavarians before. We don't particularly want to. We don't particularly want 1-point areas. I'm not sure what we're trying to do here. But we gain armies. I feel like we have to act. So we will march into Anhalt. The Austrians will let us, and the Swedes gain Anhalt. There's a danger with moving into Saxony, but we can do that. We'll go into Saxony as well and try to do that. The Austrians are quite large comparatively, don't have any... Let's give them a 50-50. There's some neat things they can do. The Austrians choose not to stop the Swedes, and the Swedes grab part of Saxony now. The Swedes are feeling weaker. They'll be able to replenish their army. They're going to stop, but they're going to keep moving. Stop but move. We're going to fall back to Brunswick because we can intercept our way all the way up to Saxony if we want. Now, it's possible that Anhalt can be taken and then Saxony, and that causes issues. But that's the Swedish turn. The Dutch don't get a turn. The Spaniards. Spaniards have a full-size army. They're facing France. We march in, and we're going to take Hainaut. The French are like, yeah, this is kind of going to be a stalemate for us. If we don't do something, it's obvious the Spanish are just willing to go for that stalemate. Do we want to fight them? We only have a 6-point army. They have a 7-point army. We will let them spend again to take Hainaut back. And they will stop there. The Spaniards actually can't gain anything else because of that Brabant deal. And that puts us on Austria. Austria has a full-size army. They want to do something. There's weak little France, and not quite as weak little Sweden. But the advantage of Sweden is this. We force the Swedes to attack if they want to, which they do not. We move into Anhalt. Again, they could attack at penalty. They do not. We're still bigger than the French. But I think we'll fall back to Saxony. Less chance of getting cut off there. And I think we are done with this military phase. Oops. And we're to the next diplomacy phase. Given the amount of time that this video has gone, it's not quite an hour, but doing the next step It's probably going to take us well over. So I'm going to pause here and we'll break this into 2 playthrough videos. It makes it a little cheaper to load up too. Of course, nobody watches the second playthrough video. I don't know, except for the end of it maybe because of my rapping. Okay, up it goes.